What if you could achieve more in 12 weeks than most people do in a year? Do you ever find yourself feeling like you haven't achieved as much as you hoped that you would by this time of the year? Or maybe you start the year really strong, but then find that your motivation can drop off. It could actually be your concept of time that is potentially holding you back. And that's where the 12-week year comes in. Today, I want to talk about my top takeaways from this book and how I also personally apply it in my own life. So grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. Would you dare to rethink your concept of time? And if you did, what impact might this have on your performance or planning when it comes to your business, your personal goals, or your career? This idea of rethinking time isn't actually as outrageous as it potentially sounds. Throughout history, there has been many versions of different calendars that different civilizations used. The ancient Egyptians, for example, used a calendar that had 12 months of 30 days each with 5 days at the end, and then this equaled 365 days, and they used that for thousands of years. Whatever the calendar, they have all been grounded in their own theories, but the point is that time in many ways has been a made-up construct that has been recreated throughout history. So if that's the case, then why not use it to recreate or reshape your mindset when it comes to your own planning and what is achievable within a year? Enter the 12-Week Year by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington. I have read this book 3 times now, and it is one of my favorite books that I recommend people read. It will have you redefining your concept of time. Now, some people might criticize the 12-week year as simply being quarters in a calendar year, and that there isn't anything particularly unique about this. It's something that is often referred to in business, and maybe you consider this when you are setting your own personal goals as well. But this to me would be a narrow mindset. So if you are much more open-minded as to what this could mean for your performance and planning, then I highly recommend this book for you. So to be really clear, the 12-week year is not about a quarter in your calendar year. You have to completely forget annualized thinking. 12 weeks becomes the year. And one of the main reasons for this is one of my first takeaways from this book, and that is urgency over complacency. The authors use all of that motivation that comes with the start of the year or the end of a year and apply it to the whole year. The idea is to create focused execution with a sense of urgency, and this by default reduces a sense of complacency that can often come with a 12-month mindset. The authors say, at the heart of annualized thinking is an unspoken belief that there is plenty of time in the year to make things happen. In January, December looks a long way off. What the authors are essentially talking about is something that I have spoken about on this channel before, and that is the idea of a temporal landmark. Humans use landmarks to navigate their sense of space, but they also use landmarks to navigate their sense of time. It's why you often feel different in January than you do in the rest of the year. And the authors in the 12-week year, I think, summarize this idea really beautifully when they say the end of the year represents a line in the sand, a point at which we measure our success or failure. Never mind that it's an arbitrary deadline. Everyone buys into it. It is the deadline that creates the urgency. So if this idea of a deadline is an arbitrary deadline anyway, then why not use this mindset in a more beneficial way to create your own deadlines? My takeaway number 2 from the 12-week year overall is that what gets measured gets managed. The 12-week year mindset creates this laser focus on your planning for the 12-week period. And that means that it is really clear what your priorities are every single week and even on particular days. And the authors really go to lengths to make sure that these are strategic priorities that are actually going to help you to move the needle. The idea of a 12-week year plan is not to create any sort of glorified task lists, but to focus on the things that are the most important, and then to underpin these with tactics, because too often people focus on the what and not as much of the how when it comes to achieving their goals. So I tend to focus on 3 key priority areas every time I do a 12-week plan, and then I have different tactics within those as well. The 12-week year system is also underpinned by a continuous system of review. So the idea is that every week you spend, say, 15 to 20 minutes reviewing your 12-week year plan. This might be at the end of the week or the start of the week, or both as well, to make sure that you are on track. I personally use a color-coded system to indicate where I am when it comes to my progress with the 12-week year. Your weekly system of reviewing your 12-week year then forms your weekly scorecard, and these authors propose that your scorecard should be ideally 85% of everything that you said that you would achieve in that particular week of your 12-week year plan. This continuous system of review is going to help you track your actual performance against your key performance indicators that you set for the various goals or tactics in your 12-week plan. The authors of the 12-week year really highlight that you should be focusing on lead indicators as opposed to lag indicators, because the lead indicators are the things that you can actually control. So for example, if the goal is more sales, then the lead indicator are all of the activities that contribute to more sales, as opposed to the lag indicators, which are the things that you don't necessarily have control over. Remember that when it comes to your 12-week year plan as well, that you can adjust accordingly. The idea is not to be held hostage to the plan that you created for your 12-week year, but to use your system of ongoing review to actually then adjust accordingly to your changing environment. So while this idea of a 12-week year can supercharge your productivity, the way that the authors propose doing your 12-week year plans is to allow for 1 week before starting your next 12-week year. So if you go back to calendar thinking then just for a minute, this means that in a calendar year, you would essentially have 4 separate weeks to be able to reset, reimagine, and recreate before diving into your next 12-week year. Next, I want to share one of my personal strategies that I use, and that is the idea of big rocks, small pebbles. You might have heard of this saying before. It is the idea that if you were to, for example, fill a jar with small pebbles and then try to fit in a big rock, this might not actually be the best use of space, or it might not actually be able to fit everything into it. But if you instead then prioritize putting in the largest rocks first, then you can fit the other pebbles around this. So when it comes to things like goal setting, effectiveness, or productivity, this is a mindset that helps you to focus on your most important priorities. Your 12-week year should already be structured around your key priorities, but what I like to do is personally include something that feels particularly more like a big rock than other things. In the past, my 12-week year plans have included things like launching my blog, my YouTube channel, and my podcast. When it comes to your business or your personal brand, the big rocks are going to be the things that help to signal to the marketplace that you are serious about the path that you are on. For your business or your personal brand, it might help to show this transformation story, like you are entering a new era. But what I also focus on in particular every time I am creating a new 12-week year plan is to make sure that what was previously a big rock is then moved to more of the small pebble mindset. Because if I don't shift this thinking, then I risk the 12-week year plan that I come up with then turning into a glorified to-do list. So when something goes from being potentially a big rock into being a more routine task, make sure that you are shifting your mindset back to those big things. It could still be in that same area of what the big rock initially was, but what is the next thing that is going to elevate that to the next level? One of my favorite concepts is Warren Buffett's idea of building a moat. This is the idea of continuously protecting and growing your competitive advantage or your value that you have in the marketplace. And this idea of adding big rocks to your 12-week plan is a great way to ensure that you are continuously building that moat around your business or your personal brand or your career. And don't forget that when it comes to your own big rocks, they don't have to be as public facing as the examples that I have given. You might build your own big rocks of your 12-week plan in private too. You might be supercharging a skill or working on a strategy that is currently invisible to others. And there is a lot to be said about building in private. As the saying goes, when you build in silence, they don't know what to attack. Sometimes all that matters most is what your big rock priorities signal to you and the universe. There is this idea that when you signal to the universe that you are serious about something, that the universe will respond. My fourth personal takeout from the 12-week year is to keep your plans where you can see them. Too often we can come up with elaborate plans when it comes to our business or even our personal goal setting, and these can be filed away or put away in a drawer somewhere, and we don't actually look at them again until the end of the year. On my desktop, the only document that I keep there consistently is my 12-week year plan, and that makes holding myself accountable to that plan week in and week out a much simpler process. My fifth tip for applying this book is to think outside the traditional calendar year. I personally create my formal 12-week year plan aligning to the months such as January to March. However, I also much less formally plan around the actual seasons. I think there is a lot to be said with moving with your changing environment and the mood that is in the air during particular seasons. I recently started creating Pinterest boards in the first couple of days of a new season that were very specifically about the things that I wanted to do personally during that time. These were less about strategic priorities related to work and more about the things that I wanted to do just because they brought me joy. Maybe they were the foods that I wanted to eat or the personal projects that I wanted to tackle. If you do want to go back to calendar thinking for a minute, then that means when you combine the 4 12-week year plans that you would have in a calendar year with the start of a new season, then you have 8 opportunities in the year to get that start of a year feeling. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.